Hey guys, Rob here again. So I haven't made you a video in a couple weeks. I thought I'd just make another one to kind of give you some updates. The last couple weeks worth of reading I didn't think were really all that difficult or challenging or anything I really needed to kind of lead you through beforehand. So I kind of haven't made a video in a while. And the same is true this week. I'm just sort of updating on a couple things. First, let me say that I really appreciate it. I think we've had some great discussions on the discussion board. I hope you guys have gotten something out of that. I really hate the canned, stale discussion board stuff that you see sometimes, but I really have felt like we haven't had that. You guys have seemed to have read each other's work and responded in thoughtful ways, so that's good. Everybody's been getting full credit, and I hope you feel like there's been some kind of give and take and meaningful discussion like we would have hopefully had in a live class. I've certainly felt that way, so good job on that. There have also been some people who've been brave and posted videos of themselves, which I think is awesome. Some of those are really good, so I hope you're enjoying watching those. For this week, we are, so this video applies to the week that ends November 25th. So it's week 6 of the class. We're almost done. You're finishing the Waterman's book this week. I can tell from what you've written that some of you kind of disagree with a lot of what the Watermans say, and some of them probably just flat out don't like them by this point, maybe, and that's okay. You know, they're definitely opinionated and controversial, but the point is I think they bring up the important issues that are worth talking about. So I hope it's been a worthwhile book. Interestingly enough, I have to share this with you. I have a friend who used to live here in Maine and moved away and was back in town on business last night, and I went out with him, and he's real outdoors. He's actually led some trips for AMC in the past, and he does a lot of this same kind of stuff. So I mentioned to him that I was teaching wilderness ethics, and he said, "Oh, are you using the Laura and Guy Waterman book?" That was his first question. And I said I was, and he said, strangely enough, he and his wife had had a chance for some reason to spend some time with Laura Waterman at their homestead. Guy had already passed at this point, but he said she was just fascinating and incredibly smart and knowledgeable and really interesting and fun, and thought that was kind of cool. So I thought that I'd pass that along. Anyway, I want to talk to you just a little bit about what you're reading this week and some of the other assignments, and then we'll call it good. But so you're finishing the Waterman's book. I think in especially like the last 2 full chapters, I think chapter 17 and 18 and the epilogue, they really sort of talk about what they want for the wilderness. They ask us to think about what we want, but I think they're really kind of telling you what they want. And a big part of it, we've talked about this distinction before, is it's important to preserve the physical wilderness, I think, just to preserve the land and create these public lands and protected spaces. And they definitely want that. There's even somewhere I've got a quote here on page 221. They talk about preserving the unspoiled physical resource that gives us our wildness to roam in. So of course they care about the physical resource. But I think more of what they're talking about in these last few chapters is preserving the spiritual resource, the opportunity to go out there and have adventures and get lost and get in a dangerous situation, see if you can get yourself out of it, and those kinds of things. So that's kind of what the reflection piece is about for this week is, what do they want in terms of those kinds of things? What do you think? There's a Latin phrase on page 220, sic transit gloria. In case anybody doesn't know what that means, probably a lot of you don't. I had to look it up myself. That means there passes the glory of the world. There passes the glory of the world. So, I think kind of what they're talking about here is that wilderness gets eaten away at incrementally, just a little bit at a time. And, they're obviously of a fairly old age when they're writing this book, and I think they're looking back and just seeing how much things have changed. And maybe it's a little bit of just typical older people being nostalgic for the past, but they make a point. These things get eroded incrementally, and you don't notice it until you've been watching for 50 years or something. But I think that's part of what they're talking about. So they talk about the 5 winter trips and how over time, through these sorts of changes, it got easier and easier to make this White Mountains traverse in the winter. All the failed attempts and then their final successful attempt. Really they're showing how we have made things easier and more accessible, and maybe taken some of the sense of adventure out of it. Really, ultimately, this is phase quandary again. You know, they're talking about phase quandary, maybe on a grander scale, but it's really just kind of phase quandary all over again. Anyway, stuff to think about in the reading. One of the topics that I had wanted to pull into this class was a perspective on Native Americans, and I kind of have done that with the exercise this week. I gave you an extra article to read with a controversial title about ethnic cleansing in our national parks. That's a pretty strong term, but you know, the fact is that I think it's an interesting read, at least, to think about the fact that the Native Americans used these places that we now call national parks for a long, long time. They burned fires, they cut timber, they hunted, you know, and then we sort of pushed them out and cleared them and drew these lines on a map and created this thing that we call wilderness. But it's sort of an artificial construct in a way. I had hoped to kind of bring in something more of kind of the Native Americans' actual philosophy and their view toward the wilderness. I haven't really done that with this assignment, but there's a great video that I almost used early on. Actually, it was not a great video, I lied. There was a video that I almost used at the beginning of the semester, and then I just decided there wasn't that much good in it. But the one really, really good piece in it was they were talking about wilderness, talking about the environment, and they interviewed this elderly Native American gentleman. And the phrase that stuck with me most out of what he said was, he said, you know, you Americans talk about resources. You talk about the natural world as if there are resources. He said, in our native language, we don't have a word for resources. Those things out there, those trees, those animals, those lakes, those streams, that's our community. Those are our neighbors. We don't even think of them as resources. So it's just such a different mindset. I really think, you know, they're probably as close to that real land ethic that Leopold talks about as anything. So I thought that was kind of a cool view. So I'm having you look in both the assignments this week. Maybe they seem kind of strange, I don't know. But one of the course objectives of this class is to learn a little bit more about the Wilderness Act itself. So I'm having you look into the actual legal language of the Wilderness Act in both exercises this week. They're kind of odd. I sort of had trouble figuring out how to put them together. Kind of a weird fit, but hey, we'll see what comes up with, and hopefully it's okay. I guess that's kind of about it. The week of Thanksgiving's come up, so hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving week. Your reading is really short. I'll still have assignments for you, but I'm going to kind of take it easy on Thanksgiving week. I think that's just a good holiday to relax and enjoy a little time with friends and family. And then after that, you basically have your final case studies. So guidelines are coming really soon on that. I did send out one email sort of giving you the overall idea. So if you haven't looked at it, check that email. But I think I'm going to let you pick your own topic, but then sort of set up the structure kind of like the picture's worth 1,000 words assignments. So that'll be the gist of it. I will get out more details very soon. And I think that's it for now. Hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you soon.